Remember, a valet is a personal assistant. A valet parks your car. Andrew, and this is Gayties Toys. Y'all, I've been putting this one off for a long time, despite many requests for it, and I think I read the room wrong, and apparently, recently we found out, very big deal, people love the Saga of Crystar, so let's just finally get into its two leading ladies, namely Ambara and Lavour. The Saga of Crystar is a toy line that came out from Remco, which is a company I've not really spoken about before. They were not really one of the big dogs, but they had some success with, Universal Monsters and whatnot. The toy line was, let's say, brief, and a comic book by Marvel Comics came out in 1983. Because of this timeline, a lot of people believe, as per normal at the time, that the toy line came first from Remco and Marvel was doing an adaptation. Quite the opposite. Marvel, in fact, was the one who were kind of getting sick of, constantly adapting Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, that kind of thing, and, kind of promoting their IP and wanted to create their own. Unfortunately, the timing didn't quite work out, so, the toy came before the comic, and assumptions make asses of us all. The plot for Crystar, or at least the setup, is probably a little more complex than, it needed to. Essentially, a Dark Lord came to the planet Crystalium to, create this chaos war. The king of the lands managed to defeat him, but was killed in the process. The forces of order sent one of their, powerful sorcerer mages to assist in the battle, Ogioti. He brought prisma crystals to help drive off the Dark Lord. The Dark Lord, however, sort of created this prophecy where he would sort of sow discontent in the lands sometime in the future and create the civil war between chaos and order. Ogioti and the Dark Wizard Zardeth went to the two twin princesses, the survivors of the king, Crystar and Moltar, and said, hey, now's our chance to actually sort of decide on what side you want to fight on. So, of course, Crystar sided with Ogioti on the side of order, and Zardon, got his other prince, Moltar, to go side with chaos through some, incredibly petty, rich person disease, royal, nonsense. It's very, transparent how, suddenly the brothers were just on opposite sides. To get into the characters specific to this video, Moltar, before he left, tried to kill his own brother because reasons. Because evil, why not? Crystar was betrothed to a woman named Lavour. She believed that Crystar was dead, but she was still kind of very much, I still kind of want to be queen, so she threw her lot in with Moltar and took off with him. Crystar was not in fact dead, but Ogioti, as well as Lavour's former valet, Ambara, took him to the Prisma Crystals and transformed him into a crystal warrior, coincidentally named Crystar. Crystar's uncle and some of his best friends became likewise crystal warriors, while, Zardeth's forces turned Moltar and Lavour and their armies into more kind of like lava-based creatures. And this is, at last, setting the stage for what the conflict would be going forward. Since you're here, you know the story. I mean, the two leading ladies were never made into toys. Ambara, I find, is kind of the more boring of the two. She, during this kind of brief little civil war between the brothers, she and Crystar did, found love in a hopeless place. She was one character who just sort of remained human and remained, kind of just a boring kind of person. I mean, not unlike Ogioti herself. She would become sort of the central part of his origin and certainly, featured as kind of just the love interest character going forward. It was really Lavour who I kind of more gravitate towards because she did get to at least, turn into a molten monster, which kind of just visually made her more striking. For the sake of thoroughness, there is one more female character who, frankly, probably has a larger legacy than the others. That being Aika. She was the daughter of Ogioti, and he sort of compelled her to undergo the same kind of crystallization process as the others. So she was really the one, good girl who had, magic powers and a crystal form and, at least, again, visually was quite cool. But she was sort of, I wouldn't say a late addition, but not, one of the core ladies early on. Up top, I mentioned that this was a Marvel Jam, and they were very committed to making this a thing. Unfortunately, there was, like all toy lines at the time, there was a cartoon planned that never materialized. They were very much, at that time, willing and eager to give any comic book series room to grow, room to find an audience, time to actually like go and succeed. So, I mean, they did give it 11 issues. I mean, and they included many, many Marvel cameos, including like Doctor Strange, Alpha Flight, making it sort of vaguely part of the Marvel universe. But I mean, it just didn't stick, and neither did the toys, frankly. I mean, they gave it to go. They had a few figures. They had a gorgeous crystal castle playset. They had crystal dragons. I mean, there was, certainly a concerted effort to make this popular. However, being 1982, 1983, there were some big dogs about to hit the scene, and Crystar gets pushed to the side. So pushed to the side, and sales so poor that any remaining stock was just shunted off to Europe, as we've seen many times before. With this hope for success, there was sort of this long-term belief, at least amongst the fans, that they had wanted a Wave 2 and beyond, much like other successful toy lines. Because it was Remco, and the sort of disillusion of that company is so messy and was bought out by so many different people, it's like there's no concept art, there's no memos, there's no leaked information out there on what would have and could have been Wave 2 of Crystar. So we can sort of live in ignorance and pretend that, at least the good girl Ambara would have been part of that, or possibly even Ica. And then, like the Tila and then Evelyn sort of dynamic, maybe we would have gotten Lavour later. But I mean, frankly, we just don't know. There's just no information. Maybe they were never planned. Nevertheless, maybe there's hope in the future. So this final verdict is a surprising one, and a bit of a developing story, in a sense. So much so that I just never thought about Crystar ever since 1983. I swear to God. So he himself has not really had many, appearances since then. He's sort of, been in the Marvel Handbook, made it onto a few Marvel covers. I mean, I'd say probably the most notable appearance of Crystar in pop culture would be a 2007 Robot Chicken episode where it's, let's say, implied that he was made up of crystal meth, so that's fun. Crystar and company would sort of make more of a Marvel splash in 2015 Secret Wars, where, he was part of one of the many weird worlds that made up Battleworld. Likewise, he would appear in Squadron Supreme not a year later, alongside Moltar, Crystal Warriors, and Ica. So, I mean, at least she was one character who sort of got like a longer legacy. From those brief appearances, Crystar, Moltar, Crystal Warrior would appear in the Hero Clicks collection. Again, none of the ladies, but at least he's getting, a little closer to the end game here. I'd say his big mic drop moment would have came in 2023 during Comic-Con that year. He was one of the figures revealed for the Void Build-A-Figure wave as part of Marvel Legends, finally indicating that Marvel did at least still have sort of the rights to him. I don't even remember what other characters were in that. I mean, you would think a bomb went off when that figure was announced. All the YouTubers, everyone on social media went crazy for this figure. And I can tell you, as you might have guessed, I did not see this coming. I was completely floored by the response to Crystar, because it's not like he's been, in the public eye. It's not like I even hear people talking about him that much. I mean, I love a translucent figure, but it was just a shock. And I kind of suspect that the Marvel Legends team were also a little taken aback by this response. Whether internet buzz means cash money, that's something a lot of companies have to really contend with. But I mean, I do kind of wonder if, that guy did blow up stores, just sold out everywhere. I do kind of wonder if he did translate into a wild success, because if so, then it wouldn't, it might behoove the Marvel Legends team to consider more characters, but perhaps even a full dedicated Marvel Legends wave of Moltar, Ambara, Lavour, Ogiotti. Like, I mean, it wouldn't be, a bad idea to sort of have like sort of an X-Men or Spider-Man-esque committed wave. That said, I mean, there's also the risk here that people just wanted a Crystar. They just wanted that one thing to, remember the franchise by. So it's a weird time, but I mean, I feel like the Hasbro team sort of saw what was happening and, might be considering something more. So, time of recording, nothing to report here. It would be great to see a Lavour who could later be, kind of repurposed into a Volcana from Secret Wars, who we've likewise talked about before. I mean, Ambara. Again, I don't really love her, not the most exciting character. Aika would be really fun. She sort of made a few more recent appearances, but nothing to see here. But keep your eyes peeled for something in the future. You never know. And that'll about do it for Crystar, Ambara, Lavour, Aika, like all these characters that I had no idea people were just crazy for. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, all those YouTube things. And I will see you next time on MIA 80s Ladies.